everything that we do, the technology that DMG MORI add to their machines, it's massive. It's a whole new way of making things. For people that are making millions of components, it's a game changer.
Welcome to the MTD podcast. I'm Giovanni Albanese, hosting today's show, a passionate engineer and a very proud member of the MTD team. I'm really excited to be back at the UK headquarters of DMG MORI in Coventry, a £1 billion global organisation and world-leading supplier of machine tools, automation and technology. Together, we have embarked on a podcast journey looking at all aspects of the UK business and finding out what makes it so successful. And today we will be looking at turnkey solutions and applications. I have the pleasure to be joined by three special guests. Firstly, an ambassador for engineering, an industry leader and managing director of DMG MORI UK, Steve Finn. Welcome, Steve.
Welcome yourself.
Yeah, Steve, great to see you again, and thank you so much for having MTD back at this fantastic facility. It's brilliant to be back.
Thanks.
We also have the pleasure to be joined by Fred Short, Applications Manager at DMG MORI, and according to your LinkedIn profile, Fred, you've been with the company for over 18 years.
Yes. Hello, Gio. Just over 18 years, yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm looking forward to find out a little bit more about your journey. We're also joined by our very own Mark Deadman, Director at MTD CNC, with a wealth of experience in the manufacturing industry.
Cheers, Joe. It's always good to see Steve. I've known Steve for a long, long time, and as I say, the tea and the coffee is superb here, so it's great.
All served under COVID conditions, of course.
It was an absolutely fabulous cup of tea, I must admit, Steve. Very, very nice on our arrival. And today I'm going to start with you, Fred. You know, Fred, first time I've ever met you. First time I've met you today. It's been an absolute pleasure already talking to you prior to this particular podcast. But can you just tell our audience a little bit about you, your journey with DMG MORI, what got you into engineering, and a little bit about the applications that you offer?
Wow, that's a fair bit to fit in. 18 years at Morisiki as it was then. Progressed on now to DMG MORI. Started in Milton Keynes. I've actually been to several different facilities while remaining at the same company. We moved down to Slough. We moved into Hitachi's at the Glanty. We've worked out of Leicester, Birmingham, and now we've moved to this state-of-the-art facility. This is the best of the lot, I think.
And just tell our audience, why did you get into engineering? What do you love about it?
I like shiny stuff. I get a satisfaction from making something or achieving something, especially if somebody's come to me with a problem and said, look, what do you think? To have some input and to see that input have an effect it gives me a buzz.
So you are a problem solver by nature?
I think so, yes. I'd like to think so.
Pleasure. I can't wait to kind of find out a lot more about what you do at DMG MORI. Now, Steve, this is a journey that we're embarking on together, shall I say, and it's an absolute privilege for MTD to be part of this journey and to kind of really find out a little bit more about what makes this business tick, and about the behind the scenes of the business, really. This is the third podcast now that we've produced together. Can you just kind of refresh our audience's memory in regards to why we're doing the podcasts together and what you're looking to achieve from them?
Yeah, Gio, that's really good to let our customers know who may not have listened to the previous podcast. But what's important to me is the operations. We've got a product range now that is far exceeding the majority of our competitors, but it's how you actually put that position or put that component into the machine, how the machine works and how we support it. So that's really, really important. So what I wanted to talk about on these series of podcasts is our operations of our business. I want to be very transparent about it. I don't want customers to think that we do this and we do something else. There are lots of opportunities for levels of support that we've already spoken about. The free of charge service that we talked about last time with the hotliners. And Fred will talk about something that he does later on, how we can support the customer base ongoing for the life of the machine. And, marketing is a really interesting point because, you guys do a lot of video work, and I guess most of the video work, and we do it as well, is about what Fred mentioned, the shiny things, the nice, shiny, gleaming things. What I want to do is just look a little bit deeper under the fabric of that and show the world what our company can do and be very transparent, as I said, about it. So we spoke last time on the service, previous time was on the spares, and today we're going to discuss the engineering support levels.
One thing that interests me, Steve, worldwide with DMG MORI, and I've had the privilege to be at Fronton and some of the other factories, is that you work very closely as a collaboration with customers. So what I'm quite interested in is how many standard machines do you sell against like application-led machines?
It's an interesting point actually, because even the standard machines need care and attention and some detail put into them. And some customers want various levels, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit, of engineering support, service support, sales support, all that kind of thing. But going back to your original question there, the customer is king. End of conversation. And if people don't believe in that, they need to go back and have another review on it, because it's the guys who pay your wages. It's about developing the relationship with those customers and proving to the customers that you can deliver, that they have a trusted source of supply that they can actually turn to at a time of need, and that particular supplier, in this case us, can deliver. So it's vitally important. You cannot have a big shiny piece of equipment and then you don't have somebody to actually install it correctly, train it correctly, fix it correctly, advise on it correctly, maybe finance it correctly, and so on and so forth. So it is really, really important. The operations of this business is really important, and it's all about customer focus. And what I would say, Mark, is if people think they are customer focused, have another look at themselves. And I'm amazed at the amount of people that are not customer focused. It's so easy to say it, it's so difficult to do it.
And I think that's testimony, isn't it? When you sell a DMG MORI machine to a new customer, it doesn't stop with that one machine. And I think that just shows you the strength that you have in the team that you've got here and worldwide.
Yeah, the team behind here sell the next machines, the service and the application and the spares and the accounts and the finance. They help sell the next machine. They're part of it. The sales guy is the most influential package always, because he will actually drive that through and facilitate the operations. But the really nice thing is that all of those guys on the field have got the support of Andy that we spoke last time, Teresa, and today Fred.
I mean, echoing what Mark said, really, I think that, I'm seeing more and more DMG MORI machines out in the field all the time at all levels of engineering facilities, whether it's a small company or a very large OEM company. And I love the fact, Steve, what you mentioned there, customer is king at the end of the day. Now, Fred, taking them comments on board, how far do you go for your customer? Nowadays they're buying effectively the machine tool is the blank canvas, but then everything around it is what makes it tick and gets the most out of that machine tool. So when can you give our audience, when someone comes to you to buy a machine tool and then they give you certain components that they want to machine on that machine tool, take our audience through the steps that you would go through with them.
Okay. The first thing we do, obviously, is talk to them with the salesman to talk about the platform they need. Then we'll look at the components and make sure that the platform is correct and the options are there that they will need. And then what we'll do is we'll talk to the customer about how he currently makes it, because he's got the experience of making those parts better than anybody else. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to find a better way of helping him to make them in the future. So it's working with the customer. It's making suggestions. It's looking at time studies. It's looking at work holding. It's looking at tooling. Just discussing it with the customer.
I mean, that's a really good point, and Mark mentioned it at the beginning of this podcast, collaboration, and that is absolute key. But when discussing some of these projects, I assume, volumes come into play, the materials come into play when choosing the right machine tool, work holding and everything else.
Yeah.
But the actual project in itself, does a customer come to you and say, I just want to reduce my cost per part, I want to reduce my operations, I want to become more efficient, I want to put all them components on one machine instead of having them on several machines? What are the kind of obstacles that you need to overcome as an applications manager at DMG MORI?
Okay, well, first and foremost, it is about listening to the customer and finding out what's important to him. What is he looking for? And you're right, there can be many different reasons for buying a new machine, and some of it might be to combine many different operations on one platform. And where that's possible, we'll work with them. It's not always possible. Sometimes we can combine 2 or 3, but then you still need a 4th. So again, just talk, discuss, offer options.
I think it's also important that the customer has a realistic view, because all of those things that you said there, Joe, actually the customer wants, and probably in some shape or form does get it, but actually it looks about the priorities. What is the priority? The priority is actually reducing the operations. It's a priority to get the cost down. So what we have to do is then find a realistic angle to work with the customer, because we want to make sure that he can deliver to his customer. Whether his customer is a big OEM or whether it's an OEM delivering to another part of their business, they've got to deliver. We've got to actually sell something that's realistic. Yeah,
Fred, I'd be quite interested to know, in reference to the salesperson coming to you with a part from a customer. Mm-hmm. That customer may have in his head, I'm going to have that machine. How many times does that machine actually change from the original based on you and your team's input?
Okay, surprisingly little. It does change sometimes, but most times when they get to this level of, right, we're ready for the next step, they've gone through their own processes, they've looked at what they need, and in the UK there's a really strong customer knowledge base. And we don't, as I said earlier, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The guy comes with an idea. It could be that we say, look, there's another alternative here. Have you thought about, instead of a horizontal with multi-loading, that you look at an automated system, maybe a 5-axis machine with pallets? And then they'll go away and think about it. Or potentially they might say no. But again, it's having that conversation.
As they say, knowledge is power. I mean, obviously, you've got, how many people in the application department, and collectively, how many years have you got of experience?
Well, we've got a team of 12 engineers working for me, and average, I'd say about 25, 30 years experience for each of those engineers. Some have more, some have less. We've got quite a good balance of ages. We've got some young blood, if you like, coming through, some that we've trained ourselves, some that we've acquired from industry, and some from competitors. We're always on the lookout for talent. If we find somebody that we think can add to the team, we'll look at bringing him on board as soon as possible.
You've certainly got a wealth of experience in the UK and around the world, and I'm sure that you can tap into that experience from around the world too when necessary. Now, Steve, you mentioned prior to this podcast that you're doing live demonstrations at this fantastic facility, and effectively you're practicing what you preach. You're proving the pudding, if you like. How important is that to instill confidence in potential customers?
I think, Joe, you can't buy anything in this world. You want to have some quality information from the supplier. whether you're buying something, expensive or relatively cheap. You go into a supermarket and you want to understand why that particular product is, they're saying is good. Why is it good? What does it do for you? And those kind of things. So I think that's really, really important to make sure that we portray the quality of our engineers in the right way. So for example, we're doing demonstrations over the next 2 weeks, 4 a day, live demonstrations with bespoke to an individual customer on the new machine that we've had in the showroom, which is the CLX 450 TC, which is a multitasking machine, multitasking lathe type of thing. And Fred's guys are running that. So they're actually being fired questions at, what does this do? What does that do? How much is that? What is that? How far can that go out? And they've got to have all the answers. They've got to know the product. There is no way they can do a live demonstration and then turn around and say, I'll come back to you on that one. Or let me have a look at the book. No, you must know your stuff. You must know your onions. So yeah. And if anybody wants to watch one of these demonstrations, you can book it through Charlie Lucas, no problem at all.
Well, that's, with some of the machines you got on the shop floor, Steve, that gives a lot of customers a lot of options to prove out. But a question for Fred is that when we spoke to Andy about service, he was saying, look, I can tap into, let's say, 6,000 service records worldwide to see if there's a problem, a specific problem with the machine. From an application point of view, can you tap into that sort of cloud knowledge at DMG MORI worldwide?
Yes, we can. All departments can tap into that. All digital service reports are stored online, and we can access any of them to see if somebody's had a particular problem cutting a certain material, if they've got a certain technique that we can apply to a project that we're working on. The knowledge is out there. The first thing we do is we look at the digital service report, we find out who it was that worked on it, then it's a matter of email or calling, depending on which country and time zone they're in.
Fred, I want to move on to skill levels, but before I do, you mentioned materials. A lot of your machines are very well renowned for rigidity.
Yes.
How important is that, when looking at an application, to have that kind of knowledge that that it can cut any materials? Yeah,
it's massive, really. It gives us the confidence to be able to push the tool and to achieve pretty much what the customer's looking for. Sometimes you have to be realistic. The tool can only go through the material at a certain pace. But we know whatever that limit is, it's the tool's limit, it's not the machine tool.
So pretty confidently the capabilities of every machine tool, and that is a lot of knowledge.
Within the department.
Yeah,
yes.
that is just phenomenal. Now, skills levels, this is quite interesting. I did my apprenticeship 25 years ago, and I can remember we used to make our own fixtures, jigs, and we used to design them too. Nowadays, you don't see this very often at all. Have you seen a drastic increase over just over 18 years at your time at DMG MORI in regards to turnkey solutions, or what you would class as kind of a collaboration in a solution that you offer?
Yes, not so much in the turnkeys, but in the collaboration with the customer. It's a two-way street. We give, they give, and at the end, you get the result you're looking for, because you're both adding to the pot. It's not just one side or the other.
And Steve, it's apparent that you've got very skilled engineers at DMG MORI, but what about the apprentices and the younger kind of engineers that are coming through the business? How important is that for you, and how are you future-proofing your business? I know that Mark mentioned prior to this podcast sea loss control, and how that really lends itself to the younger generation. How are you kind of addressing this?
Well, the first thing is that we have a great belief in growing our own people organically, whether that's through an apprentice scheme or whether that's actually employing someone we think is in a position where we could mould them into that position to give them, better skill sets in general. In the case of apprenticeships, they come under Fred, although we do have also a sales apprentice who's coming under one of the sales guys at the moment as well. And you've got to grow them through, because these guys actually come with really fresh ideas, and sometimes they also challenge the stuff that we don't know. You don't know what you don't know, so they challenge it, and you think, well, I've always done it like this, or well, I'll try it a different way. So there's a good mixture of people within that team that allows you to do that. So, you know, we have to look at the age structure. We have to understand how that works and what there is in the way of a succession plan, and also the balance of having high quality experience with, let's say, youth to come through with those, you know, crazy ideas sometimes. I just want to go back to one of the things you also said about, Fred, there about how we coordinate and collaborate with a customer. One of the things that we've got as a group is DMQP, which is DMG MORI Qualified Products. And these are companies that we work with. So, for example, if I can mention it, Renishaw is one, and then there's a number of tool holding people, there's a number of software people. So these kind of companies that we will work with to collaborate in respects of both technical growth of both products and the application of the products on the machine, but also the quality, and also things like delivery and cost, of course, is very important. So we're also looking at getting costs down. So, you know, we can work with some of the companies where we can pass on significant costs onto the customer. Now, Fred will utilise these people within his proposals for new work. And therefore, again, it's not only going to the huge database that we've already got of applications work that we've done worldwide and knowledge, but we're tapping into other people's as well. And it's very clear the people we're tapping into, so they get preferential treatment from us as well.
Steve, with a portfolio of over 150 different machines, from additive to the machine tools, let's say, the software that's behind it, the skills that you've got here, and the application people, how can you justify to give a free of charge service for applications?
That's a really tricky one, because the point is you've got to have this, the same as a car showroom. You've got to show the equipment. You've got to demonstrate it ably. I think the thing with machine tools, it goes a lot deeper. There is a lot more detail involved. And without being disrespectful to the showroom sales guy at a car company, our engineers are really highly qualified people, and they've had a lot of training, a lot of effort put into it. But our parts are expensive. Our machines are expensive if you don't demonstrate them, if you don't explain to the customer what the benefits are, if you don't finance it correctly. And what we're looking at is repeat business, continual repeat business. You know, the last podcast we spoke about new customers, and we've done very, very well in the last year over that. But actually, they will become our repeat customers as well. So it's really, really important that you give a level of service. You can't go around charging left, right, and centre for anything you feel like. You know, you're not going to survive in the marketplace like that. It is still a competitive marketplace. You've got to do your best. You can't offer everything free of charge. There has to come a time when there's a cost involved. But, you know, generally speaking, quotations, proposals, advice, these kind of things will be free of charge pre-sale of the machine, but then certainly after the machine is sold, that service is for life of the machine. So if somebody wants to contact Fred, and I think we'll go on to that in a minute, how the best way to contact him, contact Fred, and he's got a programming problem or a tooling problem or a fixture problem, something associated with the machine or the machine itself, then that is a free of charge service that Fred will supply qualified engineers to respond to the customer.
Fred, quite interesting to know, you've got 12 guys which are on your team for applications. Is that because the wealth and number of machine models that you actually sell, or is that because there's so many different applications, whether it's turning, whether it's milling or 5-axis, or the materials that you're cutting?
Well, it's all of those reasons, really. We have an existing database of 9,000 machines in the UK. not all of them are new. There's so many different models and controls and platforms. We can't expect 2 or 3 guys to manage all of that. So everybody has a skill set. We do a lot of cross training so that we can support customers with older machines. Our engineers realistically are always training. Whether they're training customers, they're training them each other.
Fred, you mentioned skill set and continual improvement in regards to training. Is this due to kind of the, ever-growing complexity of components and evolving technology, additive manufacturing? I suppose, the landscape is always changing. As engineers, we're always learning every single day. You never know everything, do you?
That's right. Every day is a school day. Everything that we do, the technology that DMG MORI add to their machines year on year, it's massive. And what we're pushing now with additive, but we're also doing, even on multitasking machines, the extra cycles that we're creating. It's a whole new way of making things. Skiving, for putting gears on, it's a massive thing for people that are making millions of components. That is the ultimate. It could save them. It's a game changer.
It's continual evolution, and you're at the forefront of that. Is that safe to say?
I think so, yes.
And how heavily do you invest in your kind of training to keep absolutely at the ahead of the game, effectively?
Yeah, well, all our engineers undergo regular training with the academies. There's a series of academies throughout Germany. Bielefeld is for turning-based products, Fronten for milling, Stipphausen, Sauer. Everybody's got a speciality, but they all run academies. So we knew we were getting this new lathe that Steve was talking about there, the CLX 450 TC, tool-changing lathe. Before it landed here and we started to set up on it, we ran some workshops online with the academy in Bielefeld so that we knew the technology that was involved, so that we knew to make the most of the technical cycles that machine can offer.
You've got a great job, Fred.
It's brilliant, playing with new toys.
Fred, before I move back on to Steve and Mark, just one final question. Give our audience a real great case study, an example of application support.
Okay, the actual support, or do you mean a project?
Fred, what about the one we're doing at the moment? We can't mention the company's name, but it's a big 5-axis machine. And they're doing, and we can't mention the application, but the collaboration between the two parties, because I've sat on a meeting this morning, has been fantastic. The knowledge that the customer has brought about his component and how it's got to be done, and the way that Fred's people have introduced a new manufacturing process, and of course DMG MORI put a new machine tool in there, and how that's come together to make I think that really sums it up, doesn't it?
It does. The customer's workforce, I think, was of a
highly skilled.
Yeah, highly skilled, highly experienced, but all coming to the end of their working life. So ultimately, they're looking at how can they replace those skills, and pretty much they can't. So what they have to do is replace it with something different to give them the same result, and they do that with the technology that we're supplying. So that technology doesn't work straight out the box because it's a brand new technology that we're helping to develop with probing cycles, with cutting cycles, and interacting with the customer, corroborating again. And we're only part way through, we haven't finished, but it is pleasing to see that we're halfway through and we've had real success in just the last few weeks.
Yeah, and it's quite a complex part. There's not many tools on the job, is it? But
there isn't, but we're chasing microns in 3 different axes. That as soon as you start doing that, everything becomes more of a problem. Everything's a problem. Somebody opens a door down the road, it causes a problem.
Yeah, but it's a complex component with multi opportunities to actually approach, but you've got to get it right because it's an expensive part as well.
Big machine, big parts, but also not just machine metal cutting. It's also including grinding and the other processes we're talking about.
Sounds like an easy job to me, but I'm not an engineer.
Well, I'll have a word with the engineer doing it and see if he can come back with any comments.
More importantly, though, Fred, is that Steve tells me that a big percentage of sales over the last year has been new business. But for those engineers that may have older DMG MORI machines, how can they keep in touch with you guys on application? What's the best way?
Well, the best way is to use the My DMG MORI portal. That is online. It's free to register. Anybody can, with a machine of ours, can register. As soon as you do that, it gives you the ability to log on and to create what we call a ticket, a problem report, saying, well, for whatever reason, I can't program this profile, for instance. That ticket is then handed to our hotliners, who will look at it. If they can't answer the question, they'll share it out to the other members of the team. If they can't answer the question, we go to the factories. But normally, first level, we can deal with this. So what we do is we will ask the customer to send us more information. If he hasn't already attached it, we'll ask for the program, a copy of the drawing, and we'll look at what he's trying to do, and we'll show him how we would do it, and then we'll send him a response back.
Fred, just want to go back to your answer, about the kind of the application, really. I think it's a great story, and I've always said there's so many ways to skin a cat in regards to how to make a component. None of them are right or wrong, or you could make them, you still get the component at the end. It sounds like you've skinned a lot of cats. It's great to see how kind of the technology is also helping to achieve the results that the customer wants. Now, Steve, we touched on evolving technologies, we're getting to the end of this podcast now, but I just want to know, really, in regards to applications, have you seen a massive increase in regards to your clients requesting automation?
Yes, I mean, firstly, I want to emphasise that no cats were injured during the skinning, all right? But the automation is growing enormously. I think that the UK has got some fantastic opportunities. The Brexit has actually brought some opportunities. I know there are some difficulties, but actually I've seen quite a lot of reshoring coming through. But what you might find is that they might want to reshore it from a low-cost economy, but they don't want to pay any more for it. So you've got to look at it in a different way. So automating it is really, really important. We've got an automation specialist and we've got other people below him that we're training up as well, because that is the way of the future. So automation and digitisation is really, really important. And this actually is where some of the younger blood comes into this, because they come up with these crazy ideas that actually they know better than some of us, our old guys. But, technology is moving on really, really quickly. Fred mentioned it there. We're doing grinding on machines. We're doing subtractive. We're doing layering up of materials, so laser deposition on machines, and skiving and all sorts of applications. So, and this has all got to be encompassed inside the automation. So we've just recently won a cell where we've got 2 machines linked with a robot, which will be loading, unloading fairly large components, going through a cleaning station, going through an engraving station, and coming out the end. Each particular component will be identified by its number and traceable, and going through a complete automated from blank to finished component. So automation plays a big part in that.
Steve, it's interesting how you've changed the perception at DMG MORI over the years, and I can see that we're doing these podcasts talking about service, we're talking about applications today. Now, I would imagine that the sales team are so privileged to have 12 guys in Fred's team, because I don't think you'll be selling as many machines without these guys.
Oh, absolutely. But it's the whole package, isn't it, as well? And this is interesting, Mark, from a point of view of why we're doing these podcasts, because there was also 30-odd people which were on the service, which the sales guys appreciate as well. And then you've got the people working on the spares, and then we've got people working on the life cycle products, and we've got the apprentices. So Fred's team is really important because there's a lot of pre-sales done, and then the post-sales is really important because if a particular sales guy said this is what it's going to do, and it does say that on the brochure, that's what we've got to deliver, and that's what we do deliver. So it's great to have those numbers. It's great to have longevity with people like Fred. Huge amount of experience he's got. I mean, he's seen machines come and go, software come and go, and understands what's good, bad, and indifferent, and can also operate with his guys on that basis as well. So very grateful to have these guys on board. Some of the younger guys, I'm really looking forward to their development as they grow with the company, and I hope I can hold on to the older ones as long as possible because they're good guys.
Guys, I've really enjoyed this podcast a lot. I've learnt a lot, and it's been great to meet you, Fred. I think I love the fact I've loved the fact and how I've learnt about how you tackle applications, and in regards to the partnership side of things, and kind of the collaboration and working together. I think it's a great team effort that you're all putting together here. And again, thank you very much for having MTD CNC at DMG MORI UK. I'm sure that for anyone listening to this podcast, DMG MORI would be absolutely delighted to answer any of your questions that you may have. And also, don't forget to visit the DMG MORI portal. But guys, any last thoughts just to wrap this podcast up? It's been a pleasure. I could go on a lot longer, but we've really kind of just about ran out of time now, guys. But, I'm sure we'll continue this in some way, shape or form in future podcasts. Fred?
No, it's been a pleasure to meet you both. I hope we can do something again, maybe down the road.
I mean, it's your first podcast, and you've been an absolute legend. So thanks, Fred. And Steve, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really pleased to have this opportunity to expose our company and show people what we're capable of doing. So we've done the spares, we've done the service, we've completed with Fred today on the applications, and the next one will be on the life cycle products. So I hope the customers are enjoying it. Feel free to talk to me direct. I'm open to all sorts of opportunities, good, bad and indifferent, and hopefully this has helped the customers understand our business a bit better.
That's it for me, really. Thanks for everyone listening to the MTD podcast in collaboration with DMG MORI on this journey together. And until next week, the MTD podcast.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.